Apparently I'm live, but I just want to make sure that everyone can see and can hear me. Can you see and hear me, Louise? Can you see and hear me?
No.
Can you see me?
In real life or yes, I can see and hear you.
You can. Good, everyone. Hello. You can. Okay. Okay. Right. So as you can see, my phone's buzzing like Billy. Yeah, we're at home today. Louise is in the other room. She's kind of self-isolating. Is that a right word, Louise? Really self-isolating? Can you hear me?
I can't hear very well.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Good, good, good. So yeah, how is everyone? We've been away. Try and get this. Yeah, we've been away for a week. We had a nice break. As you can see, I got a bit of a tan, which is always a good thing this time of the year. And as you can see, yes, we are at home. I'm in one of the studies here. I don't have a whiteboard, so I'm just simply going to read the questions that are coming through and trying to answer them as best I can. Louise is going to be on the chat. She's in another room, so she's on her iPad or her iPhone, whatever she's doing, and she's going to be sort of commenting in the chat as we go. We did have someone mention about they couldn't chat on the iPad, but I think that is due to the fact that I don't think he was logged in to. It's got top chat here. I don't think he was actually logged in to what are we on YouTube. So I think that may be the reason why. So as long as you can hear me, that is fine. Louise is going to be, yeah, need to be logged in. Thanks, Lou. Yeah, I need to come a bit close to read the questions. A bit of a nice, bit of a daylight coming through the curtains there, so I'll pull that. So is that any better? Am I clear, Lou?
Yeah.
That's okay, as long as I'm clear. Good. We went to Lanzarote and we had a very, very nice time, I must admit. Weather was really good. We had about 5 days of sunshine, gorgeous, gorgeous temperatures. The last 2 days, I think, were a little bit on the windy, cloudy side, but the temperatures were really good. So we had a fantastic time. Thank you very much, Lanzarote. Was it Puerto del Carmen? Puerto del Carmen? I'm absolutely rubbish at these names. So yeah, that's where we went. Let's come a bit closer. All right, let's have a look. Victoria, I thought my clock was wrong. Pardon, Lou? Yeah, Porto del Carmen. Thank you. Good, good, good. All right, so we will start in a few minutes' time. There's no flashy intros today. It is just simply on the laptop, as you can see. And Louise is going to be doing the chats on her iPad. Someone tried smuggling stones in a case. I just simply gave you the case because you didn't have didn't know what electronics was in the other one. And I happened to try and smuggle out some rocks, didn't we, Lou? Oh dear. And who got pulled up? Louise did. And then tried to blame me. Okay, let's go back to the start and see what sort of questions we've got. Alan Thompson, good afternoon. Thank you for watching all the Q&As back to back. Really kind of you. Hope it hasn't bored you too much. I got some paper if I need to write and draw anything, as I don't have my board to hand. Let's have a quick look. It's 2 minutes to 4, so let us start with today's Q&A, being the 20th of March, 2023, 4 p.m. Monday. Time for our latest Q&A from home from the home. What's this? The study. Yeah, from the Berries home anyway. So let's have a look then. Is it okay to start, Lou?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's have a quick look then. Yeah, Tanya's been making a gorgeous Maltese cross. Tanya, yeah, please, when you finish it, do send in the pictures to Louise so we can feature you upon the Q&As, and that would be absolutely brilliant if you could. People use the World Clock app to keep track of time in the different places around the world. That is a really good idea. And I think is it called worldtime.com? I think we use that as well. That's a really good website to use to keep track of times around the world. Because I know certain times of the world, then I know that we're going to be changing it over to British Summer Time in a few weeks' time. Then it's going to knock everybody out. So we'll certainly let you know when that happens. So at the moment, we put GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. But when the hour here in the UK changes, we'll be putting British Summer Time. And then you guys then can sort that out then with the hour difference wherever you are. Let's have a quick look. Let's have a flick through here. Louise is asking, are we going to be at the jewellery show at the Excel Exhibition Centre in London this coming year, the 20th and 21st? Now, we went last year. We were really pleased with how it was last year. The amount of exhibitors was really, really good. A lot of lab-grown diamonds exhibitors there. And I thought, you know what, this coming year, we are definitely going to go. Thinking it was at the beginning of September when this particular show in London, it's always at the beginning of September, but because they can't do it at the beginning of December due to some government, not government, something to do with the MPs. There's something going on. They've got the whole of the Excel. They have to have the show a little bit later this year. So I thought that'd be a fantastic time to go. But it happens to be around Louise's birthday, and I have planned to take her away to the place that she has always wanted to go. Well, the heating's just come on. So unfortunately, Louise and I are not going to be able to make it to the Excel this year, unfortunately. So no, we're going to be away, I'm afraid, for that. So sorry, Louise, we won't be able to go. Okay. Yes, Louise is in the pajamas on the sofa with a blanket over her. Have a chilly overcast Norwich. Sorry to hear you poorly, Louise. Hope you get better soon. So look after yourself. Yes, Louise, get better. I've been doing my best to look after her today. Let's have a look. Chicken soup. Louise is allergic to chicken, so we can't have chicken soup. This is quite hard, this, isn't it, Lou? At home with the berries. Yes, it sort of is partly at home with the berries. I've got Louise's cardie on the back of the chair here. Where to go on holiday? Yes, we answered that one. Clock was wrong. Apparently here Claire's saying you can't take part on the chat. Louise is taking part on the chat on her iPad. So, or perhaps you can't watch in full screen and have the chat separate. I don't know. But Louise will be able to tell you because she's on her iPad in the other room. So we want some questions. Please ask me some questions. Yeah, the chat just jumped then. The clock was wrong. Sorry, guys, about this. Just bought a Dado laser. Any advice for joining silver? Have tried black a bit. So, Mark, I haven't tried a Dado laser welder. I know when it comes to things like silver, it is a very, very difficult material to try and weld. Also, with the puck, the Lampert PUK, and the Orion pulse welders, silver is really, really awkward to try and join. But I'm afraid I don't have any experience when it comes to using a Dado or any type of laser welder, I'm afraid. So unfortunately, Mark, I really won't be able to help. But wherever you got it from, if you got it from Walsh, the guys in Walsh should be able to help, or the suppliers for the machine should be able to help you. Oh, I wish I know. I'm across to Lanzarote from our house. So, hello, rainy Seattle. Yes, Louise got caught trying to take rocks out of the country. I had to laugh. They wouldn't let me through security. I was the one side of the barrier. Louise went first, and because I had some.
I didn't get caught.
You didn't get caught, no.
You got caught.
I got caught, but it was in Louise's case. But we did find some peridot on the beach. Got some little samples. Let's have a look. Hope you're well, feeling better. So can I ask Andrew one, making a bezel, and he says to use a buff stick. Is it 600 grit? Louise Harvey, yes, it is. I use nothing but 600 grits for the buff sticks. As you know, I don't bother about having 600, then like 800, then 1,000, then 12, and so forth. Because as you use the buff stick, the one side that you're using gets slightly smoother. It gets a bit more worn down. So you've got effectively one side of the buff stick that is going to be 600, and then the worn side is going to be in the region of about 800, 1200 grit, so to speak. And the more you use it, the smoother it gets. So I have a couple of buff sticks on my bench. They're all 600 grit because I'm too lazy to do any other type of buff sticks, and 600 grit I think is the best to start off with. I use the same buff sticks over and over again, but each side of the buff stick gets smoother and smoother and smoother. So if I got some stubborn marks to take off, I will get the buff stick and I will use the 600 grit, nice fresh bit of 600 grit to go over. Then I flip the buff stick over because I've used the other side, and then I use that buff stick then, and perhaps I'll pick up another one that's slightly worn again, and I will carry on. I don't have buff sticks labeled 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200 because it's just, for me, too time consuming to go hunting for the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And I think for me personally, it's a bit of a waste of time. Let's have a look. This is what happens in stone balls by 4 limbs. Oh, that's nice. He pretended he didn't know anything about it. Well, I did know something about it, but I didn't think she'd get caught. For Jane, hi Andrew, followed your collet punch video today. Has just bought one. Problem, my collet stuck in the punch. Tried everything to get it out. Collet. They are really tricky. You usually have to turn the punch over and then get perhaps a scribe to push it out through the back of the collet plate, and that should be able to push it out. Either that or something like a little center punch, and just perhaps put it over a little bit of over your what's that thing called? Your peg. It's been so long since I've been to the bench. To get your peg, turn the collet plate over, and then tap it down through that V section of the peg, and it should be able to push it out. Also, if you do line the insides of the collet plate with a little bit of oil, it'll stop the silver sort of attaching itself to the metal, and it'll provide that little bit of lubrication, so you should be able to push it back out, which should be just right. Clocks were forwarded on the 26th. Thank you, YouTuber. Thank you so much indeed. Rebecca, question: what are the standard women's and men's ring sizes? That's quite a good question, because when we order rings from the manufacturers, they say, well, what size do you want the rings in? So when it comes, this is the thing, it depends on your location around the world and around the country. Perhaps you're in an area where the women have slightly larger fingers. Perhaps you're in an area where women have slightly thinner fingers. It really depends. But for us in this country here in the UK, we usually have in the region of about M's, N's, and O's. They're about the 3 good sizes for ladies. So M's, N's, and O's. If you wanted to do it that way, or you could have M's, O's, and Q's, knowing that you can just stretch up a ring one size if need be. You could do that. Same with the gents. You may have some big chaps in your location. You may have some thinner chaps in your location. So it depends again. What am I? I'm about a size R. So I know some blokes with like a size O fingers. They're really, really small. So a size R, RST something like that. Again, those are usual good size at RSTU, or if you want to have every other, go for an RTV perhaps. So you've got 3 RTUV. So then you can stretch your rig up a size if need be. So I wouldn't go for all the sizes because it's going to be far too costly for you. When we perhaps manufacture a ring, knowing that you can't resize it enough without it distorting the head, we would do perhaps a couple of designs of different size rings. It's knowing that particular, what I'm trying to say, if there is a head that is got to be completely flat, and perhaps it's a signet ring, but the head has to be flat. If you try and make that ring bigger, the head will end up slightly concave. And you don't want that to happen. So in that case, we would make it a signet ring with masters of different sizes, knowing that we can take the rings up and down, which does mean extra cost when it comes to making the master and also getting the molds made, but enables us to have a wider variety of rings, knowing that we can use different masters and different molds for the particular size rings. A very long answer that was. Very long answer. Oh, it's just jumped again, Louise, my chat. I mean, I was saying it's my husband's father's security actor as well, isn't it? Do your world famous white bristle brushes. Do I use one for triply polish wheel and the final polish? Phil, I would always use the white nylon brushes for a pre-polish. You'd always use it for perhaps a triply or a Menzurner pre-polish. So a final polish would come obviously after that, but make sure that you don't use the bristle brush, because then the bristle brush is going to be a little bit too coarse. So then what you want to do then is use something like a nice soft rouge mop for those particular jobs. And because the rouge mop is nice and soft, like a nice white cotton mop, again, we sell them in the store, load that up with a rouge, and that will get into those little areas that you're trying to get into. But I think the bristle brushes, because they are nylon, they're a little bit harsh, they're a little bit too stiff to give a nice smooth finish. That is where the white cotton brushes come into play. Have you ever used or made a porosity killer, a rotating device for the forging, says Susan? You can buy, let me get my pen and paper. People say that you can make one from a burr. You get the burr and you bend the end so it's sort of that shape, and you sort of make a bit of a, okay, so perhaps the burr is this particular shape, okay. This then goes into the handpiece by there. I feel that this is a little bit on the dangerous side, because this is going to flip around and around and round and round. It's also going to oscillate as well, because it is obviously off center. You can do this, make sure the end is bald, and make sure that is nice and smooth and polished. So as it comes around, it will actually burnish the metal. I don't like using that. Other things you can buy, and I will do a side view of this, and I'll perhaps I'll do like a sorry guys, I haven't got my my whiteboard at the moment, so I'm just quickly going to draw this, then I'm going to show you. So you can buy something again like this that fits into your handpiece, and it's roughly around about 8 millimeters, 10 millimeters in diameter, and on the outside of these little areas here. Now this is something that I would prefer. It doesn't oscillate, it'll just spin round, and then obviously these little bumps here will come over and burnish the metal. This is going to be a little bit more costly. Unfortunately, we don't sell these in the store. You can make these with a burr, bend it, and it's just a bit too dangerous for me. It spins, it oscillates, and like this, but this is much better. And I'm sure they're called burnishes for rotary tools. something like that. But they are a lot better. I don't usually tend to have problems with porosity an awful lot. It happens if your castings are designed sort of incorrectly. Sometimes if the sprue is not coming into the casting, into the mold, into the model nice and evenly, and it stops, the metal takes air into, and then you may cause a little bit of porosity. I have had some porosity with some castings that I've had from Western Bmore that I've just simply sent back and asked them to cast again, because accepting substandard products from a major casting company is not on. I just simply sent them back and they recast them for me. So I try not to get porosity in my pieces. Let's see what else we got. Penny, sorry to hear Louise is not well. Sending lots of love. Everyone get better soon. All the sympathies coming in for you, Lou. Lots of vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin C. Good. It's the full screen bit you can't do. It's all live chat, all picture YouTube nights. I see. Thank you, Claire, for that. I thought the last workshop was great. Will you be doing one for setting cabochons, M. Vaughan Green? I think we've done one, Lou, haven't we, on bezel setting? I think we've done one on bezel setting already. Let me just make a quick note of that, and I will double check when I get time. Bezel setting. I'm sure we've done one of those last year in 2022, and if we haven't, I'm sure we will definitely do one for you. I think we did do one. I think we did. If I get a chance, I will certainly have a look for you. Let's have a think. Can I melt silver with my smelter? Bob and Tammy. When you say smelter, do you mean the little crucibles in a furnace? We've got a furnace that is simply a base with a quite a tall graphite crucible around about 2 inches, 50 mil in diameter, and that can melt apparently a kilo of silver. So yes, you can melt the silver that way. I only use my furnace when I am casting in silver, when I do need to have a lot of silver to be used, if we're doing lost wax casting, for instance, because I find that the torch can melt a nice amount of silver for pouring out into an ingot mold. You see, some people have this lovely bench furnace, with a graphite crucible. And when they pour out the silver, it's about this much. It's about 10, 15, 20 grams. Well, for me, that's a huge waste of electricity melting with this massive furnace that's capable of melting sort of 1,000 grams, and all you do is melting 10 grams of silver. I would rather, it's far quicker to use a torch, whether it be a Sievert torch or a Smith's little torch, just to melt that small amount of silver down and pour it into an ingot mold. Obviously, if you're melting down more than 30 grams, it's going to be easier and quicker for you to use one of these furnaces. Never put borax in the graphite crucible, because there is no need. I would have a graphite stirrer. Keep one separate, one for silver, one for 9 karat gold, one for 18 karat gold. Keep them all separate, because then what you do, you put your stirrer into the graphite crucible and give it a stir. And that is what we do. Let's have a think. David Payne, in your annealing metal tutorial, you warn against overheating the metal. If you do, and I have, is there a way back, or is it start again? This is the awkward thing, isn't it? I think it's very hard to know when you've overheated silver to a point that you may have damaged the silver, because the silver starts to melt. And I don't think you can... I don't know the exact answer to this. I know that you can use a furnace, a kiln to put the silver into to anneal it, which may be a good thing to do. if you've overheated the silver, how do you know you've overheated it? And what happens to the silver should you overheat it, apart from obviously melting it? So, David, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I don't think you need to worry unless you've melted it. And that is the only way to do then is to start again, is to melt it down, pour it out, and roll it down into a piece of sheet again. John, when soldering two pieces to one, would you recommend the same type of solder or an easy and a hard solder? Okay, so this is quite an interesting question, and not a lot of people know this. When you melt solder, you sort of partly burn away the properties of the solder. So, for instance, say you're using hard solder. I use hard solder quite a lot, and perhaps if I'm soldering 2 or 3 pieces onto the same piece of metal, I can use hard solder, but without melting the previous solder joints. How? Well, it is because the silver solder melts at, say, for argument's sake, 1600 degrees. I just pulled that figure out of my head. I don't even know what melting point the solder melts at. I find there's no need to know that. But say it melts at 1600 degrees, okay? So you've heated your solder, you've soldered something onto a ring, onto a back plate, or whatever it is. When you come to use a fresh piece of solder, your original piece of solder, because you've melted it once, may, and it will, melt at a slightly higher temperature. So say, for instance, it melted at 1600 degrees the first time. It may melt at 1650 degrees the second time, which means if it melts at 1650 degrees, that's up here, your next solder joint will melt at 1600 degrees. And that solder joint, your first solder joint, will not melt because it melts at a slightly higher temperature. And you can try quite a few soldering jobs upon the one piece. Obviously, it pays to make sure that your torch is pointing away from the previous solder joint. So you don't have your, for argument's sake, let's get another bit of paper. It's awkward not doing things on the bench. So say you have your plate and you've just soldered a ball here. Okay, so this is a plate. I've just soldered that ball here. Okay, and I want to solder on another ball by here. Now, if I put my torch in this direction, okay, so this is going to melt at 1600 degrees. Is that okay? Can you just about see that there? There we go. This is going to melt at 1600 degrees. This is going to melt at 1650 degrees. These are just made up. Okay. But if you put your torch in this direction, the heat from this ball is going to carry on to this ball. So this ball is going to start to heat up. So what you need to do is to put your torch from another direction, so no residue heat is going onto this first solder joint. So your torch will be going this direction, or from this direction. So the flame from your torch is going away from your previous solder joints. And this is very, very important. You can't even come along and put the torch underneath because it's going to heat up the whole area. So it is about the position of your torch. Don't put it in this direction to heat up the previous, put it in the opposite direction so the residue heat from the flame does not go onto your previous solder joint. And you will find that you should be able to have quite a few solder joints of the same solder within the close vicinity. Okay, let's see what else we got. Lisa, can an item made with silver clay be melted after fire? Yes, it can. But what you may find is that because when you have your silver clay, it's clay. And within the clay is silver. All right. When you come to fire your clay, what happens is that the organic material built into the clay burns off and it leaves behind the silver. Now, because the clay coats all the tiny, tiny, tiny little grains of silver. When that organic material burns off, you're left with all these little tiny, tiny, tiny little bits of silver. And again, I shall draw this for you. You've got all these little bits of silver that, and so what you've got, this is your silver, okay? This is your silver, and around all this silver is all organic material. When you burn off that organic material, the silver doesn't all slump into a complete blob. It stays where it is, and you now will have gaps in between all the little tiny pieces of silver. When you come, I know we didn't talk about soldering yet, but when you come to solder metal clay, because now effectively, and I know it's early in the evening, Louise, and we're going to talk about it again, it's the difference between a Yorkie chocolate bar and a Whisper chocolate bar. From the outside, they look identical, but break it in half, cut it in half. What you see when you cut open a Yorkie, all chocolate. When you cut and open an Aero or a Whisper, you've got all those little bubbles, and that is what the silver clay looks like when it's been fired. So when you come to solder, the solder flows inside all the little gaps. So you're going to need more silver solder when you come to solder it, or you burnish the surface and you slightly compress all those tiny, tiny silver granules into a bit more of a solid piece of metal. Now, to answer your question, when it comes to can I melt my silver with, can I melt it? What you will find is that you may have a reasonable sized piece of fired silver clay, but because it is full of holes and air where the organic matter has burned off, what you'll find is that your piece of silver will be a lot smaller than if you had a solid piece of silver. So again, let's go back to chocolate. If you melted down your Yorkie, you would have that same size piece of chocolate, albeit in perhaps a different state, because it is all chocolate. If you melt down your Aero bar or your Whisper bar, you will find that even though the chocolate bars may look the same physically from the outside, your Whisper bar amount of chocolate will be a lot smaller because there is lots of air. So yes, you can melt down your silver clay silver, but don't expect it to be the same size because it's going to all go down into solid silver with no gaps in. That's a very long answer, Andrew. Also, I say a huge thank you for your Sally Spencer book. You are the best. Thank you, Louisa. Yeah, Sally Spencer's book is absolutely brilliant. Don't forget, upon the store, if you're watching, we still have Sally Spencer's book at $27.99. I know it's gone up to $29.99, but whilst we have stocks bought at the original price, it is $27.99. And if you put in, I think it's free BCK. I think there's a code on the page. You put that into the checkout, you get free second class postage, but only if you have the book on its own. You can't add anything else to the book. So if you have the book and you get your free titanium strip, it will charge you for postage. Take the free titanium strip out of your basket, you can have your free postage. So the choice is up to you. Let's have a look. Lou, what beach did you go to? Peridou on the beach. Yes, well, we went to Lanzarote, but we went to the south coast, Porto del Carmen, not to the north coast. So we did find some small little bits of a peridot, but not sort of gem quality, just like in with the rock. Mark Mishima, you bought it from Walsh. Good for joining platinum and palladium without joining those. Yes, that is the advantage with a laser. I don't usually use a laser. I have got a puck, a Lampert puck. It's very, very good for finishing the outsides. Now, what we also do that is actually quite handy when it comes to lasering. When you come to join a puck, with using a puck or a laser, what they tell you to do is join the metals. It's a terrible drawing, Andrew. Let me just quickly draw this a second. They suggest you have the metals coming together like this. Okay, so they come together like that. Usually you like to have a nice flush joint, don't you, like this? Okay, that doesn't work with a laser. That doesn't work with a puck, because a laser only really penetrates the surface, and so does a puck. So what you'll find is that even though the outside of the ring or whatever you join in looks lovely and smooth, the inside has not been joined. So what a lot of people will suggest you do if you want to use a puck or a laser is to have the ends of your pieces joining like this. And then what you do, you get your piece of filler wire, your platinum in this case, and you put it in and you melt it. You put it in, you melt it. So in effect, you're melting your filler wire, filler wire, filler wire, filler wire until it does that. And likewise down here, you filler wire, filler wire, filler wire, and you melt it and you build it up and you build it up. My pen's upside down, it's not working. And it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And you keep doing this until it is slightly proud of the surface, and then you file it back. And that is the correct way to join platinum when you're using a puck, or I'm sure it is when you can use a laser. Now, what we tend to do, we tend to cheat sometimes, but it gives us a brilliant, brilliant result. When you try and join platinum or palladium with a solder, because the solder is softer than the metal, when you come to polish it, sometimes the polishing action drags out the solder joint. So what you will get is a little bit of a dip like that in your metal, because the mop has dragged the solder out. Even if you've got a lovely tight solder joint, it's very, very awkward not to reveal the solder joint. Obviously, if you have the mops running in the direction of the joint, it will easily drag out the solder. So again, the problem that you're going to be able to solve there is to turn the metal the opposite way, so the mops are running at 90 degrees to the joint. You're going to get less of a drag out with the solder. But what we do is that we will solder normally, but on the outside of the ring, we will get perhaps we'll do it beforehand. Let me just think. Yeah, what we'll do beforehand is get your join. Okay, you join the ring like this. This is the outside. And what we'll do, instead of soldering it all the way through, and instead of doing this idea as well, what I would do is just melt the surface together on the outside where the join is. So I'm melting the surface so there's no telltale sign on the outside, so there is no solder joint. Then I'll take it over to my bench and I'll solder it. I will solder through that join. So now the outside of the ring is being melted. The solder will not flow to the outside because it's been melted. So now I have got a really good join with the solder. But when I come to polish the outside, because it's all been melted and there's no solder there, it'll be able to be polished. So it's a way of disguising the solder joint nice and easily. All right then, Mark, when drilling the holes on your halo ring project, do you drill through the shoulder underneath if it aligns, or should the shoulder be thin enough on the back side that the hole misses it? When you drill through the shoulder underneath, if it aligns, or should the shoulder be thin enough on the back side? Not quite sure, Mark. I can't remember, but I always try and drill through if I'm setting any stones. I'd never like to make the holes blind, if that's what you're on about. I'm not quite sure. So the idea is, when you come to set, if your if you're flush setting, I always like to drill through the metal. So there's a daylight going through the top to the bottom, because if it's blind and it only goes part the way into the ring, and then you parve set, flush set, dirt can get underneath the stone, and you cannot get that dirt out at home. You can if you use a steamer or an ultrasonic. So it's easier for the customer to clean the rings if the holes go all the way through the piece. So that is what I would do. I'm not quite sure, Mark, if that's what you're talking about, but if I'm completely wrong, just let me know in the chat and hopefully I'll get to it. Yufang. Yay, I'm glad you actually could join us on our Q&A. Well done, well done. I found it's hard for some accessories, 3 blank discs. The design is to link them together, not solder them directly. I don't know how to link them together. To link together 3 blank discs without soldering them. On at the bench, there is a film where we actually do this, and it's called I think if you just put in linkage, linkage, I'm sure the film should come up, and it's a way of joining exactly what you've put there, discs in different ways. You can simply join them with a jump ring between them. You can simply join it with I can't remember whether it was a hinge or soldering on some pieces and then putting it all together. But if you check out that film, I'm sure it's linkage. It's linkage. I'm sure if you put linkage into the search bar, it should come up. If it doesn't, get in contact with me the usual way, and I'll certainly directly direct you to the film. Tess, can you advise on soldering 2 copper pieces together? I have made a fold form leaf and I'm trying to solder on a stem, but it won't work using medium silver solder. Tess, it should do. I would try and put the solder onto the stem if you are made, say for argument's sake, a leaf shape, and it's been fold formed. And if you're trying to solder on, say, the stem down the middle, is that what you mean? Or do you mean soldering a stem onto the end? But either way, what I would do is make sure that you sweat solder your silver onto the end of the piece first of all. And if you're soldering onto like a vein running through the center, sweat solder silver solder onto the stem. Doesn't matter if it coats the whole thing, but as long as you've got solder running along the whole length of that, it should work. Now, copper will oxidize really, really quickly. That's going to be now. Solder will oxidize really, really quickly. So you've got to make sure the copper is really, really clean. Heat it up, quench it in your acid. It's lovely and clean then. Make sure you flood the whole area with borax. Heat up the copper slightly so the borax water evaporates. And as long as you're left with a complete line or area of white where the borax or the flux is, and likewise if you're trying to solder a pin onto the end by there, make sure it is perfectly clean. You should be able to use medium solder, and like everything else, if you're trying to solder a stem onto a piece, or if you're trying to solder like a vein onto the middle of the leaf, don't put the flame on the top. You've got to think about what is going to happen when you put a flame on a piece of metal. It will melt, and some will melt quicker than others. Usually the smallest area, the smallest mass of metal is going to melt before the larger mass, because it's going to take more heat to heat a larger piece of metal than a smaller piece of metal. So if I was soldering a vein on top of a copper leaf, I would not put the torch on top, because this wire is going to melt. You'll think that it's not working and the solder's not flowing, but what you haven't done is heated the rest of the leaf. Likewise, if you're trying to solder a little stem on the end of the leaf here, don't put your flame on the stem here, because this is going to heat up quicker than this. So always rely upon putting the flame on the largest mass, the largest area that's going to take more heat. So I would heat up from underneath the leaf, so the heat transfers through the leaf to the metal. Or if I was trying to solder a little stem onto the end of the leaf here, again, heat up the leaf and allow the heat to transfer from this large area to this little thin area by here. And providing these two are in contact with the main body, the heat will be transferred. And providing you've got a nice close fitting joint, there's plenty of borax on it, it will solder. Let's have a think. What we got there. What grit sandpaper do I use to make my copper smooth as glass? Bob and Tammy. Use, like I said at the beginning of the Q&A, use the 600 grits and then use various worn stages of 600 grits. Then you've got to have a pre-polish. It's a slightly rougher, slightly greasier polish. We often use Tripoli. And then what you would do is make sure then you get rid of all the Tripoli off the surface by putting it in as an ultrasonic or washing it in warm soapy water. Then you would then use a rouge polish and rouge or a final polish. Always remember that if you are buffing in a direction, okay, come along and polish at 90 degrees to that direction, because then what you're doing, basically the polish is slightly burnishing the metal. If you polish in the same direction, have the mops going in the same direction as your filing or your buff sticks or whatever it is, they're basically polishing the grooves. But if you polish at 90 degrees to where you've just been going, to polish up and down this way as opposed to that way, you're going to find that the metal is going to be burnishing over those slight, very slight grooves. And likewise, then when you come to then use a rouge polish, you then polish at 90 degrees to which direction you just used your Tripoli. So again, you're basically burnishing the metal at 90 degrees so you don't get those divots being polished in deeper and deeper and deeper. Jeanette, question, are you going to sell any more prepared crucibles in the shop? I've tried to do my own, end up yet. Yes, we have run out. Let me just put prepared. I'll put that on the store tonight. I don't have any made up, but I will make some up for you, not a problem. I'll make sure there's some on the store tonight. Janet, Louise found that there's volcanic lava on the beach or the lava fields. If anyone's in Fort Ventura and starts to chip away at my walls, I'll be happy. Let's have a thing. Julian found a jeweler doing some making, but she kept doing things another way to you and ran into all sorts of problems. I pointed her towards your channel for top tips. Thank you, Julian, for that. Really do appreciate that. Oh, it's just jumped again. Mark, that's exactly what you do with your laser. Good. There's plenty of questions coming, so thank you all for this. Port and lemon. That's funny you should say that, Billy. My daughter bought us some port for my birthday. Birthday was last week, by the way. Let's have a look. Oh, there you go. Okay, got the laser from Wall. She said, yes, which is better to do. I watch your videos, do everything. I learn a lot. Are you doing any more on lost wax casting? James, I can do. It's not at the top of the list at the moment, but James, if you want to email Louise at andrewberry.co.uk, say exactly this type of lost wax casting you want me to show you, and I will certainly do some films definitely for that. Joshua, I have a friend who wants a ring for me, but in the Z+3, is that commonly listed on Euro mandrels? Z+3, I think if you look for a conversion chart for EU to UK, there should be some listings on there. If it's not, you should be able to work out, because EUs go up in certain sizes and the UKs go up in certain sizes. So you should be able to work out what perhaps a Z+1 is, Z+2 is, Z+3 is, based upon the steps from X, Y, Z, and so forth. Hope about soon, Louise. Missing the double band. Yes, it is a bit all on me. I do miss Louise. I know, yeah, by missing you, I'm missing the cheeky banter. She's in the other room isolating. I bought a long triple mold at the shop, but I would like to know if I need to prep oil before. Yes. So Isabel Lambo, yes. What you need to do is get the mold, and before you do anything, before you melt silver into it, make sure you get some oil. Some people will say use the flame of a candle, but personally, who has a lot of candles in the workshop these days? Most people will have oil, light engine oil, 3-in-1 oil, anything like that. pour in a pour, just gently dribble it and get some kitchen roll, some paper towel, and rub it all over the surfaces of the mold. Then heat up the mold. What you may find is that the oil will set fire. That is good, because the idea is the oil sets fire, and what it leaves behind is carbon. Carbon coats the mold, so it coats the recesses of where you're going to be pouring your silver. That is vitally important because that acts as a bit of a release for the silver. I know somebody who poured about 100 grams of silver into one of these molds straight away without prepping it, and the silver actually stuck to the mold and he could not get it out at all. Not quite sure what he did, but he couldn't get it out. So always prepare it by putting oil in the grooves, set fire to it, just wipe it over with a kitchen towel, paper towel, and you should be good to go. Laura, I have to solder a bit of gold-plated copper. I sanded down most of the back down to the copper, but there are bits of rhodium left. Is it okay to solder, or should I remove it all? I've never used rhodium. Gold-plated copper, so why is there rhodium on it? Laura, I don't quite understand why you've got rhodium, to be honest, but just please give me a bit more information on that. I'd be happy to help. Jane, stamping rings. When I have flat surface, I'm fine. When I have half round, if I use a rubber plant, yeah, if it's a stainless plate, it flattens out. Yes, there is a particular die that you can buy, or if you've got a doming a doming block, because you've got all the recesses, what you can do is put the ring, excuse me, into the doming block, so the curvature of the ring matches the curvature of the doming block. Then what you need to do is get a swan neck punch. A swan neck punch is that sort of shape. It's called a swan neck punch as opposed to a straight punch. What this enables you to do is enables you to stamp in the middle of the ring, okay, like this, because the rest of the ring shank goes into that area. So you can go inside the ring shank to stamp it. Now, if that ring is within a doming block, it's not going to go out of shape. It's not going to go flat. So a doming block is ideal. You can also buy a block, a brass block, okay, and it's got, let me just try and draw this for a seconds. Little rectangular sectioned grooves in them, but they're curved bottoms, if that makes sense. Ooh, curved bottoms. Some of them are wider, bigger curves, so a cross section through that would be like this, and then they would be like that. Okay, and then the ring sits into that area and use a swan neck to punch. Then it won't be forced flat. Mark, use borax for years. What would you advise as a replacement in a liquid flux? Finding some pits in my 9 carat lately. Thanks. I don't know why you're finding some pits in your 9 carat. Sometimes if you overheat the metal, the borax, sorry, the solder, you will get pits. So the idea is you heat it up, the metal, the solder just starts to melt. So it has sort of 2 stages. It goes jelly-like. You know what jelly's like? It looks like molten, but it still holds its shape. Heat it a fraction more, and the rest of the solder will then flow. Once it's done that, take the heat away. There's no need to keep heating it because you're going to gain nothing from heating it. What you may find, it could be overheating because it's perhaps smaller than the rest of the metal, and it could be boiling, and then the other alloys could be boiling away, leaving these little pits. So in theory, you shouldn't get any pitting. What other flux would I recommend? All flux is pretty good, and I think solder, SODDAR from Cookson's. I know Rebecca in work, she uses that, and she's had no problems at all. A graphite mold. Yep, Janet, you can buy graphite molds, exactly the same thing. No need to add borax to that. No need to prep them. You can simply pour the molten metal into those graphite molds and they'll be fine. Let's have a look. When do you use the burnisher? Question, when do you use the burnisher? Rebecca, not quite sure in relation to what, but a burnisher you would use to burnish metal. A burnisher is great. It pushes over the metal. If you're using a cabochon, for instance, you would use the burnisher to burnish over the metals. If you've made a little bit of an error and you've just sort of gently scratched the metal slightly, what sometimes happens when you scratch it, the metal gets displaced either side. So what you're going to find is that you may find that if you scratch a piece of metal like this, you see that the metal gets displaced. But if you come along and burnish this metal down in this direction and burnish the metal down in this direction, you should be able to push the metal back. And that basically is what happens when you get to porosity. A burnisher will burnish the metal over those holes and seal those holes up. You've got porosity in silver beads. Sometimes happens. How do I shine up my burnisher? Again, buff sticks and polish it. If you've got a bench mounted polish motor, you can use that. Or if you've got a Dremel, you can use a calico mop with some Tripoli on it to polish it. Exactly the same way. Just pretend it's a piece of jewelry and you can use it on your mops without a problem. I've seen your bezel setting. You have done one. Oh, there we go. Thank you, James, for that. Yes, we did do one. Yes, you have a gas furnace. A gas furnace. I would only use a gas furnace if you've got a large amount of metal. I would simply just get a nice 2-inch crucible and basically use that for melting down. Do they use thermometers? I can't tell what temperature my melting points are. If you use an electric one, it does have a gauge and it'll heat up to a certain temperature. What I would like to do, if you've got a gas smelter, you know when the metal is going to melt. You can see it melting, but that is only the surface. This is the reason why I would get a graphite stirring rod, because you would put the graphite stirring rod in the molten metal and keep stirring it. If you see any lumps underneath, keep on heating it a little bit longer. Once you're stirring it and you can't see any more solid pieces of metal underneath the surface, so to speak, and bring it around, wait another 20 to 30 seconds and then pour it, and you should be good to go. There you go, David. Your mandrels was there. Plus 6. Excellent. Stuart, you can micro sandblast. Yes, you can. Where can I buy this perometer? I've no idea where you buy that perometer, I'm afraid. What else we got here? You can buy a handheld or a furnace or combo with temperature. Yes, temperature control. That's what I've got. You can lose temperature. Oh, okay, yes. Oh, there we go. Exactly. Very nice pen. It's a great idea. You can use some Thermalock into that particular shape. It should hold up. It may flex slightly to make sure you get a nice big chunk of Thermalock. Like perhaps like a nice piece, perhaps the size of a plum, and then make a little dent upon the top. So then the rest of the Thermalock gives it the strength, so it doesn't tend to move. But brilliant idea. Thank you, Penny, for that. Let's have a think what else we got. Looking for a point handheld, just like the one you used to check the temperature. I think that's there's Joshua. No, just stand there all chatting amongst yourselves. That's brilliant. Thank you for that. Really good. Looking for an infrared thermometer. I don't know. I can't help you with that, I'm afraid. The workshops are fantastic. It's wonderful to walk through the entire process. Thank you, Rebecca, for that. Don't forget, if you have any suggestions about the sort of workshops that you would like to see, please do get in contact with us to let us know. We've got several on the way, but obviously this is what we think you want to see. But anything that you specifically want us to show you, please do get in contact with us. Yufang, can you spell it again? Yeah, linkage. 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 Fingers crossed it should be there. If it isn't, get in contact with me and I'll send you the link to that. And wish he was my tutor. Thank you for that, James. Really do appreciate that. If I don't have a prong lifter to remove a stone, what else can I use? Top cutters. Top cutters are really good for doing that. If you've got an old pair of top cutters that have worn out or become slightly dented, what you can do is just sharpen the one edge. So you've got where the top cutters come along, you would sharpen the one edge and perhaps have the other edge. Do you know what I mean? So this is like, they come together like this, top cutters. So you make sure that one edge here is still sharp and the other edge is rounded. And then you can actually get into the claws to pull the claw off. So I'm trying to think how I can draw this now. So the claw is in here and you got the other claws coming around like this. Yeah. So what you can do with the stones by here, you can get your top cutters and you can pull the claw, and providing the bottom part of the top cutters is nicely rounded and smooth, it's not going to mark the metal, and that will just get enough pullage and leverage, almost like a parrot's claw, just to ease that top of the claw back. Scratch solder, not quite sure what you mean, Tess, with that. I don't have the prong lift up. What can I do? So go ahead, we're not 100%. Take care of yourself. Yes. Right, good. One very quick thing before I forget. April, we've had about 4 or 5 people not actually claim the giveaways that we've been doing. We've got about 5 pieces of Durston to give away still. We've actually got the Fordham flex shaft as well that we have not been able to give it away. We email people to let them know that they have won the gifts. What am I all about? Going on about At the Bench. At the Bench is our online jewelry training platform. If you're a paid member, so you pay to be a member, every month you are entered automatically into a competition. We draw one person out of the hat. We email that person and say you have won a particular product. If you don't come forward, that's tough. You've lost it after the end of the month. If you haven't claimed it, it'll roll over to the next month and so forth. But in the month of April, we've got 4 items of Durston that we're going to be giving away to 4 lucky people. We have got a disc cutter, doming set, shank bender, and a bangle mandrel. We've got over £1,100 worth of tools to give away in April. So they'll be up on social media over the next week. So if you're a paid member of At the Bench in April, and your payments and it's current and you've paid, you can win. You are in with a chance of winning those 4 items of Durston. So all you got to do is be a paid member, and we will draw 4 people's email addresses out at random. We will email you, but you do have to get in contact. We will not come chasing you if you don't come along and claim your prize. So check your emails, make sure our emails don't go into your junk or your spam folder. You then have in with a chance of winning one of the 4 items of Durston. Let's have a look. And don't forget, if you do cancel your membership, if your membership is still current, you're in. But if you cancel it and your membership lapses before April, you will not be counted. Rust will dull burr files. Yes, you don't want it. Yes, you found linkage. Exactly right. Let's see what we got going on here. Rio Grande for graphite rods. Yeah, I think cousins to graphite rods, and I know Walsh to graphite rods as well. Looking forward to April. Yes. As long as it's not rocking your confidence. Let's have a look. I think we're coming to the end of the Q&A. We're coming up to the end. Just about to renew a membership. Hint for the ring shank bender. Janice, do you know what would be really nice? We'd be able to go around the world delivering these prizes. Anyway, let's not go into there. Graphite rod from Cookson's. Only problem is 1 foot long by 1/2 inch. That's roughly how long they are. They're roughly around about a foot long, 300 mil. Dull the bottom cutter on toenail clippers. Ooh. Okay. Tanya, Andrew, is there any demos on measuring? Measuring? I find it hard to know how much silver to use and what gemstones and so on. Tanya, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Louise, what you want about, Louise? Let's have a competition. Have you gone to sleep?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, what competition? Pardon?
I just can't shout.
Okay, what competition?
I put it in the chat.
Okay, send me your best jeweler jokes. One that makes me laugh most wins a... No? Well, the person who made the original item of a copper, then rhodium plated it, then gold plated it. Oh my gosh. The problem is when you come to solder, Lara, when you solder anything on a plated item, the plating will always burn off because again it's like a small little thin piece of metal on a thick bit of metal. This is going to burn off, so you're going to have to rhodium plate it and then copper plate it afterwards, which really is a bit of a pain in the arse. So Louise has got an idea. Louise wants, there aren't many, as far as I'm aware, there aren't many jeweler jokes, are there? So we'll have to wait and see what hashtag Louise wants to have for jeweler jokes. So yes, Louise is poorly, suffering with COVID this week. Cheer Louise up. So how are we going to do this, Lou? Are we going to use a hashtag? Should we have hashtag jeweler joke? Oh, ATB jokes. How about ATB jokes? Yeah. Okay. All right, then let's have. Where's the hashtag on this particular keyboard? There we go. ATB. Yeah, ATB jokes. So let us. Yes. All right. So if you want to get in contact with us, don't put it here on the chat. Send Louise a message. louise@andrewberry.co.uk. I usually do this and read the whiteboard, but we don't have one today. Come at home. So if you want to put it on your social medias, put ATB jokes. We would love to hear from you. Any jeweler jokes, and the best one, Louise is going to send you a prize. Or the best one that makes her laugh the most. She always laughs. Louise, the teacher, is so old school, but I won't let him win. Hard to explain. That's why I asked Andrew, because I know. Oh, Tanya. Yeah, what were you talking about, Tanya? About something? Let me know, Tanya. Yes, put it on Facebook, Insta, ATB jokes. Good, good, good. All right, so I think we shall wrap it up. Please, sir, kindly let me out of the closet. She's not in the closet. She's in the lounge. Look, she's in the lounge over there. On the sofa in her pajamas. Okay, should we round it up, Lou? Yeah, this is not a joke, but true story. On the beach a couple of years ago, lying in the sun, when we heard lots of metal jangling noise, no prize for guess where the bloke passing by had his body jewelry. Yeah, that's not good, is it? All right. Only in Fortaventura, I'm sure. Okay, we're going to go. Well, I'm going to go. Louise is still in the chat at the moment. So everyone, thank you very much for coming on today. Sorry, it's a bit of an unusual Q&A today. It's not in the usual workshop. We're at home because Louise isn't very well at the moment. So good. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope I managed to get everyone's questions. And if I haven't, just please get in contact with me via the usual ways. And don't forget, please, as Laura says, give this video, we got 35. Come on, there was 96. There's 110 of you earlier. Let's give this video, I can't even do it myself. Let's give this a thumbs up, please, guys. It'd be absolutely brilliant if you could. Normal service hopefully will be resumed next Monday for next Monday's Q&A. Don't forget, like this. Thank you, Laura, for that. Get well soon, Louise. Yes, absolutely. Yep. So everyone, thank you very much for coming on today. Hope we've had a little bit of a chat and hope I've managed to sort out some of your problems. What's that? Night Quill. Beef broth. Wow. Where to buy burnishes for rotary tools, Phil? Phil, drop me a quick email and I will point you in the right direction, or we could try and stock them in the store if I can get my hands on some. Janet, when is the next workshop? It is going to be this month. We're going to have to wait now for Louise to get better before we can go any further with that. So I would have thought that's going to be at least in a fortnight's time. So that may take us at the end of March, beginning of April, I expect. Ciao to everyone. Have a great week. All the best, Louise. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for a useful session. Hope Louise is better and that you stay clear for Andrew. Yeah, I've managed to have my 4 jabs, I think. Was it 4 jabs? Or have I had 3 jabs? I've had all the jabs I've needed to, but Louise has had 1 less. So I think that is the reason why she's caught it, because she's not being jabbed up, so to speak. Okay, I know the mini burnishes are out of stock on the store as well. I have to get to all the orders. We got masses of orders to put together, so I'm going to do my best to get through them over the next couple of days. Like I said, we haven't been in the shop today, but I'm going to try and get these orders out to you as soon as possible. So thank you, everybody who placed orders this week, and grabbed your 10% off whilst. What?
Say happy birthday to Susan.
Oh, Susan.
Susan HP.
Susan HP, happy birthday to you. Another year older, just like me. Bet you don't look it. Happy birthday. Should we sing? No, never mind. Louise can't sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Susan.
Happy birthday, dear Susan.
Happy birthday to you. Hey! Well done, Susan. Happy birthday. Good. Let's go. Donald slept in separate rooms. Yes, it may even come to that. It just makes it, yes, Claire, the jabs don't stop you getting it. It just makes it milder, so safe. Yes. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully next Monday, normal Q&A will be resumed in the studio. In the meantime, I'm going to crack on getting these orders out. Please don't forget, get in your jewelry jokes, hashtag ATB jokes, all about jewelry. And the best one, Louise is going to sort out a little prize for you, the one who can make Louise laugh the most. So I'd be interested to see all these, because I don't know any jewelry jokes, to be honest. All right, everyone, take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Keep an eye out on social regarding all the Durston tools that we're going to be giving away next month. About £1,100 worth of tools to be given away. You've got to be in it to win it. How do you get into enter the competition? It's simple. Just be a paid member of At the Bench. We don't ask you to jump through any hoops. We don't ask you to make anything. Excuse me. We don't ask you to make anything or anything like that. It's simple. If you're a paid member, you can be in with a chance of winning one of Durston's tools: shank bender, doming set, doming punch, dapping set, disc cutter, or bangle forming die set. That is next month. The month after, we're going to be relaunching the Fordham, what's that thing called? Flex shaft. We have that here because nobody claimed it. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. Louise, say goodbye, Louise.
Bye.
Pop it in the chat, Lou. All right, everyone, take care. We will see you all very shortly. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.